Okay guys, let's keep going with the glands and the hormones of the endocrine system. So last day we finished talking about the pituitary gland, so let's start today with the thyroid gland. So there's three glands today that I'd like you guys to concern yourself with. The first one is thyroxine, and it's commonly called T4. And then we have the second one here is triiodothyronine, and that's going to be commonly written as T3. So those are the two hormones I use as the example in the negative feedback loop. And then the last one here is calcitonin. So here's what each one of these hormones does. Thyroxine stimulates the consumption of oxygen. Now, increasing consumption of oxygen is going to cause our metabolic rate to increase. So if thyroxine is present, we're going to have an increase in metabolism generally in the body. Triiodothyronine, T3, if that hormone's present, that's going to cause an increase in the body's basal metabolic rate. Now, the basal metabolic rate is the overall metabolic rate for your base functions in your body. Okay, so this is the amount of energy you would expend, or these are the amount of chemical reactions that would happen if you were just staying still and doing nothing all day. It doesn't factor in any of exercise or anything like that. It's just your basal metabolic rate. So T3 is a hormone that's kind of keeps that in check. And then the final hormone we get there is calcitonin. And calcitonin is a hormone that helps reduce the calcium levels in the blood. So maintaining the level of homeostasis of calcium is important for healthy bones, as well as muscle contraction like we talked about in the previous unit. So if we were looking to find a thyroid gland, if we have a look at the picture here, we'd find the larynx. So this is going to be in our throat, and right below the larynx we get this gland that kind of looks almost like a butterfly in shape, and it kind of wraps around the trachea, with the windpipe. Now, the next gland is going to be the parathyroid gland. Now, if we want to find the parathyroid glands, what we do is we look at the back of the thyroid gland. So again, we're looking in the throat, and that the parathyroid gland are going to be these small. They're going to be there's 4 of them, and there's going to be 2 on each side of the back of the thyroid. They're quite small, and they actually sit on top of the thyroid gland. They produce a hormone called parathyroid hormone, and what parathyroid hormone does is it increases blood calcium levels. So if you think about calcitonin, this works opposite or antagonistic to that. So it'll increase blood calcium levels. It can increase mineral concentrations in the body fluids, and it's also important in magnesium and phosphate production. So it has a bunch of different functions in terms of working on specific elements in the body that are important for different chemical reactions, different metabolic reactions. So this is just a continuation of the parathyroid. So we looked at it, we found there are 4 glands on the posterior capsule of the thyroid, and it secretes parathyroid hormone, which will work with calcitonin secreted by the thyroid gland to help regulate calcium metabolism. Now, like I mentioned before, calcium metabolism is quite important when we think about muscle contraction, and also when we think about strong and healthy bones. Some of the disorders that can happen if the parathyroid is damaged or compromised could be tetany. Tetany is when we get muscle contractions that are very, very stiff and can cause muscles to lock up. If you ever cut yourself on something metal, you get a tetanus shot, and that's to prevent an infection that can cause the same idea. So tetany. You can also get kidney stones, so calcification in the kidneys, and it clogs up the kidney tubules. Could be very, very painful. But kidney stones can form as a result of high concentrations of blood calcium. So that's another reason why calcium metabolism is very, very important. The next glands we'll look at are the adrenal glands, and these look like little pyramids that sit on top of each kidney. They have 2 pretty distinct divisions. If we look at it under a microscope, it's pretty easy to tell the cortex, which is on the outside, from the So this is our cortex out here, like that. And then the medulla is this section on the inside in here. It's pretty easy to tell those apart on a microscope. The cortex is going to secrete two hormones that I want you guys to know about: cortisol and aldosterone. Now, cortisol is important in helping regulate metabolism, and it also responds to stress. If you're under a really stressful situation and we take a sample of your blood, we're going to find the hormone cortisol present. Okay, it'll be released during times of stress. Aldosterone is a hormone that helps control blood pressure. Okay, so it maintains blood pressure in that normal range. The hormones secreted by the medulla are going to be epinephrine and norepinephrine. So these are two hormones that we've already talked about. They're involved in the sympathetic nervous system. These are two hormones that will certainly help when we prepare for a fight or flight response. So the adrenal glands, if we look at the hormones produced by the medulla, here's our epinephrine. We also get norepinephrine, and these are commonly called adrenaline. Okay, so adrenal glands, adrenaline, that's kind of where the name comes from. And adrenaline is that hormone that gives you a rush, that feeling of you get energy released directly to your muscles in the form of glucose. It breaks down glycogen, so your muscles get a big boost, so you get that rush feeling. A lot of people who do extreme sports, they say they do it for adrenaline because the body releases adrenaline in those types of situations. The cortex hormones, we already talked about aldosterone, and I wanted you guys to remember cortisol. There's other ones there, obviously, but I'm not too worried about you guys knowing these glucocorticoids or mineralocorticoids. For your purposes, just make sure you focus on cortisol and aldosterone. Okay? Now, things can go wrong with any gland in our endocrine system, and in the case of the adrenal cortex, since there's more than one hormone secreted there, we can see different things happening. So these are three examples of disorders that can arise if we've got problems with the adrenal cortex. The first one there is Addison's disease. Now, before we go any further on this, I should say, keep this in mind. When we see the word hypo, that's going to mean low, lower. Hyper is going to mean more. So if we say something is hypofunction, that means it's lower function than normal. Okay, so if we look at Addison's disease there, that's going to be the result of hypofunction of the adrenal cortex. So we're not going to get as many of those steroid hormones, aldosterone and cortisol, produced as we normally would. And this can result in Addison's disease, which is a combination of symptoms generally characterized by weight loss, weakness, tiredness, a lot of abdominal pain, and it can be a long-term disease if it's not discovered. The next disease there is Cushing's syndrome. Now, Cushing's syndrome is going to be a hypersecretion. So in this case, we're going to have an overproductive adrenal cortex. So we're going to see more extra cortisol present. So it's going to be, the body's going to be basically feeling like it's constantly under stress. And this can lead to feelings of weakness, tiredness, sadness, weight gain. People who have this disease have weight gain in unusual places, but it's certainly their face. Their face gets quite full, and sometimes they call that a moon face because the face is quite round in shape. And then the third condition we get down there is aldosteronism, and this is a hyperfunction of the cortex again, but we're getting extra aldosterone, and aldosterone is that hormone that regulates blood pressure, and as a result of this, we're going to see an increase in high blood pressure, and high blood pressure can cause a litany of symptoms. It can cause a lot of different things, and it can be quite negative on your overall health. The next gland we'll talk about is the pancreas, and probably I suspect the pancreas is the most popular or well-known gland in the endocrine system, and that's because it's responsible for maintaining blood sugar homeostasis. There's other things it does, but it's the most important thing for the endocrine system. It produces two hormones, insulin, which is responsible for lowering sugar levels, and they do that by storing sugar, and usually in the form of fat. And then we have glucagon, which is the second hormone produced, and this works to help us increase our blood sugar level in case we need it. So these two hormones, insulin and glucagon, they work antagonistically. So they work against each other. Insulin does one thing, glucagon does the exact opposite. They're produced in the pancreas in these clusters of cells right here, called the islets of Langerhans. So within the pancreas, you'll see these islets of Langerhans, and they're clusters of cells, and they'll make up the endocrine function of the pancreas. Like I said, the pancreas is more than just the endocrine function, but the islets of Langerhans are the ones that produce the endocrine hormones, and that's going to be, like we just spoke about, insulin is going to be produced by the beta cells of the islets of Langerhans, and glucagon are going to be produced by the alpha cells. And then, of course, those hormones are going to work antagonistically. Insulin is going to be there to lower the blood glucose, and glucagon is going to be there to increase the blood glucose levels. There is an exocrine portion of the pancreas. I'll mention it here, but don't need to worry about it too much. Many of the rest of the cells that are in the pancreas are called, they're organized into groups called acini. This word here, acini. And those acini will produce enzymes that will be secreted directly into the small intestine, and those enzymes will help us in our digestive system. So the endocrine function is for blood glucose homeostasis, and the exocrine function is for digestive enzymes. Now, the sex glands, they're also going to be producing hormones that are going to have wide-ranging impacts. If we look at the male first, the testes are going to produce groups of hormones, and male hormones are called androgens. Okay. Now, the one that we're most concerned about is the hormone testosterone. There are more other androgens, but testosterone is the one that we're worried about. And testosterone is going to stimulate the growth and development of the sexual organs, called puberty. Plus, it's going to help develop and maintain secondary sex characteristics. So for men, that's facial hair, broader shoulders, a little bit bigger muscle tone, and so on and so forth, deeper voice. Those are what we consider the secondary sex characteristics. Another function of testosterone is to stimulate the maturation of sperm cells. So sperm cells are produced, and they need to mature before they have a realistic chance of being viable, and testosterone helps with that. Now, if we switch to the female, the gonads, the sex glands, are going to be the ovaries, and the two hormones, although there are more, but the two hormones we're most concerned about are estrogens and progesterone. Now, estrogen has the same role in females as testosterone has in males. Okay, it stimulates the growth of the primary sex organs as well as secondary sex characteristics, development of breasts, fatty deposits in the hips, and so on and so forth. Progesterone is a hormone that's directly involved in the reproductive cycles. So we'll see progesterone stimulating the development of the tissue in the mammary glands, preparing the uterine lining for implantation, and helping in maturation of the eggs and ovum. We have another couple of glands here, the thymus gland and the pineal gland. These are quite small, but they do secrete, not quite small, but they're a significant part of the endocrine system. The thymus is a large gland actually that's located in the upper chest near the heart. And the thymus, it plays a key role in the development of our immune system. It secretes a hormone called thymosin, and thymosin is responsible for helping the growth of our T cells. The pineal gland is a small gland that's located in the posterior of the midbrain, near the brain, and it produces a hormone called melatonin, which helps us in our sleep